This last point, I am thankful to Dr. Pooja here. Studied there was slight kind of error because Bhavya or Bhavivek is a Swatantrik and Sthavir Buddha Paliti is Prasangik. This one was altered. By the way, what do you mean by this Swatantrik and Prasangik? Two types of Madhyamikas, of course, but in what ways they are different? Okay, okay. Swatantrika, as the name suggests itself, this also refers to the mode of disputation. How you are going to argue for your in defense of your thought system, right? So this is Swatantra, independent also in this sense. And the other one is Prasangika. It means if you engage in debate with this kind of scholars, they would ask you questions sometimes, and try to refute your argument or your question that this is not a valid question, right? And they have logic for that. They would refute it, and then their viewpoint is already established in that sense, because the question you are asking is not appropriate, not logical, and they will show flaws in framing your question. That's why in the beginning I was saying this, that it is very, very important to frame a question, logical, consistent, well thought question. Okay, if you want somebody to respond to that, otherwise your question will condition the kind of response you are going to get, right? So this is how it goes on, right? Now this we have discussed. Today we are going to talk about characteristics of language, right? Characteristics of language. We'll take up tomorrow Vigyanavadins, right? Yogachara Vigyanavad, and we'll discuss apo-theory of meaning, because Madhyamika is almost complete, and then we'll take up Vigyanavad tomorrow, and along with that apo-theory of meaning, and then day after tomorrow we'll discuss literary analysis in this framework, right? This is the plan. So first let us know what language they are discussing, what is the concept of language, how language is important, why Indian tradition paid too much attention right from the beginning, right from the Rig Veda. It's a continuous tradition of thinking about language, right? Why it was so important for them. And we realized it in the 20th century, 21st century, we realized the importance of language, both ontologically and epistemologically, how language is so important. I am reminded of 20th century scholar, philosopher Gilbert Ryle, who said that language had become an occupational disease. See the word, occupational disease for the 20th century philosophers. And language acquired a center space in the intellectual discourse of 20th century, right? 21st century. And also many linguists, a new area also emerged in this period in 20th century, and that was philosophy of language. That is linguistic philosophy, also philosophy of language. So this nomenclature itself was not more than 100 years old in the Western thought, right? But in India, these scholars were discussing this thing from philosophical point of view. You see, all theories of meaning are discussed in some or other philosophical systems. Okay, as apo-theory is rooted in Buddhist philosophy. Sport theory is rooted in grammarian's philosophy. Grammar itself is a philosophical system, and that is there in the Sarvadarshan Sangraha of Madhvacharya, right. The text I have already mentioned. So, the 13th chapter of this book, 13th chapter, Sarvadarshan Sangraha of Madhvacharya. Should I write it again? Huh? Sarva Darshana Sangraha. Okay. So, there are 16 chapters in this book dealing with 16 philosophical systems. This is again a very, very challenging area, how to classify Indian philosophical systems. In that book, Buddhist Theory of Meaning, there is one kind of attempt, not perfect, no one can claim. We need even more sophisticated logical classification or taxonomy of Indian philosophical system. It is yet to be done. So, it cannot be simply said Astik and Nastik and the whole thing is gone. So, Sarvadarshan Sangraha describes 16 philosophical systems. 13th chapter is on Panini, Panini Darshanam, Panini Darshanam. Philosophy of Panini, let us say. So, in 15th century text, you have this concept, philosophy of language. Panini is a grammarian. Philosophy of grammar, Otto Jespersen wrote this book. So, but in that book, in Otto Jespersen's book, though very, very important one, very important work, but you don't see any philosophical analysis. It's a logical analysis of language simply. Am I right, sir? It's a logical analysis of language from the point of view of logic. Right. Here much more than what are the domains, or what is the subject matter of this new area of study, philosophy of language or philosophy of grammar. Three things are important here: language, thought and reality. Okay, thought or knowledge, whatever, knowledge and reality. Okay, the relationship between these three. Okay, we study the relationship between language, thought or knowledge and reality. This is the broad domain of philosophy of language or grammar. How linguistic category correspond to the categories of thought and reality. Yesterday we were talking about naam and akhyata, noun and verb. So these are the basic elements in language. These are the basic components. Without these two, you cannot have language, right? But ontologically, noun refers to the object and verb refers to the state of being. In what condition, in what state of being that object is. So this is how they correlate. So one important thing is that grammatical categories are also categories of thought and reality, right? Grammatical categories are categories of thought and reality. Okay. So grammarians, for example, in the Indian tradition, they have discussed these categories ontologically also at length. So we will not go to that direction, that is a very vast area. So here you will see that language is acquiring a very central space in 20th century scholarship. And why it is so important? Language is so important because very late, even in the West, because in the West you don't find such a consistent, continuous and rich tradition within quote of language thinking. There are things scholars have thought about it, but not in a consistent, in a kind of tradition that we find here in India right from the Rig Veda, remember, right from the Rig Veda till today, you have continuous tradition of texts and thinkers. Continuous, very rich, vast literature is available on language. Okay. So, philosophical systems also discussed various aspects of language, and also there are two things. One is the elements of language, and another is how that. But before that, let me ask you, what is the difference between the word in dictionary, any dictionary, and word in use, the way we are using it here? Can you make any distinction between the two?
Word in dictionary is rigid, whereas the word in use is dynamic. It changes its meaning as it's.
Can we now another question? Yeah.
Word in daily use is based on a context.
Context, yes. Okay.
And that in dictionary is based on the standardized usage.
Can we use a word taking directly from the dictionary? Is that sufficient? We take the word from dictionary and use it. Is it possible? No, it is not possible. Before that, it has to undergo grammatical processing. It has to acquire certain case markers, markers of time, tense, etc. Only then it can be used. So, Indian grammarians right from the beginning made a difference between shabda and pada. Inflected morphemes, right? Those who have acquired inflections, like Rama in Sanskrit, you have Rama, Ramu, Rama, etc. So that becomes pada. Once it is processed grammatically or takes a grammatical form, only then it is usable, right? Otherwise, words are abstract. For their use, you have to make them pada, and pada is localized, that it will have a kind of a case marker, nominative case, singular number, like this, singular number, dual number, plural number, or 7 types of cases. And similarly, verbs would also take gender, it will mark gender, number, and also what else? Person. So, and time, tense, etc. Lakara, what we call lakara in Sanskrit, 10 types of lakara. In that way, you will have these two kinds of pada. One is nominal, another is verbal. Right? Nominal pad, noun, and verbal with inflection. With inflection. So, Panini, that's why defines pad as suptingantam padam. No need to write. I will explain this in this. I will explain it. Subant, that which ends with a case marker, and tingant, with that which ends with a verbal time, etc. marker. So, together they constitute a kind of sentence. We frame a sentence only. We use, what do we use? Do we use word or sentence? What is the basic fundamental unit of language? Word or sentence?
Of a language. Sentence. Sentence. Of a language, if it's being used, then sentence.
Sentence could be of one word.
Yeah, the word.
It could be of one word.
But when it's one word, the rest of the sentence is inferred.
You have to, language is always rooted here. In the context, you don't repeat the whole sentence, you don't need to say the whole sentence, but it is understood. If somebody utters a word, then you try to frame it mentally, otherwise you won't get the meaning. Okay? In the form of sentence, And if there is some difficulty, you ask that say something more. So till you get the full sentence, you won't get the meaning, in what sense it is used. Suppose somebody is saying, where are you going? You simply say hostel. Okay? But you mean this, I am going to the hostel, and the person also, because the context is so, you need not repeat the whole thing. You need not say the whole thing. So sentence is the basic cognitive unit of language. Okay? And a sentence may be of one word, because the rest of the things are understood, that's why one word utterance is sufficient. Or in drama also you might see this kind of situation. So this is important, right? Now you will see that language is important in the sense that it helps us cognize the objects. Okay? Let me explain this. These are some observations, some reflections on language. Language describes the object when it is physically present. We discussed yesterday also. When physically absent, and even non-existent. Right? What makes it important to subject for study? If it is only something like this, that it describes the present things, then there is no difficulty. All things are around us, we can point out and then we will understand. But it also describes when the object is absent. It is not there, present in some other time in a space, but not here. Even we can talk about it. So see how language is enhancing our ability to know and express. Here it is problem, that or even non-existent. So objects which are not there, there is no corresponding object of a particular word, even you can talk about them in language, like a rabbit's horn, horned tiger, etc. All we talked about. Second, language and culture entwined. You cannot separate language and culture. Language is embedded or embedded in culture, you know. So many cultural expressions which are specific and they are difficult to translate also. When you try to translate from one language to another, it is difficult, and it is continuous. Language is also continuous. It continues. It cannot be restricted by a political boundary, right? So it continues. So is the culture. Okay? So they disseminate, and you can draw a line and you can say this one side and then another side there are two different states, but this cannot be possible in case of language. However, political boundaries tries to control this linguistic or in cultural dissemination. Anyways, language and knowledge. Anuviddhamiva jnanam sarvam shabdena bhasate. This is from Bhartrihari's Vakya Padiya, 5th century text. Vakya Padiya. It's available in English Hindi translation. Vakya Padiya by Bhartrihari. It's a profound text on philosophy of language, right? So there in the towards the end of the, it has 3 books, 3 chapters. Towards the end of the second book, Bhartrihari says that language and knowledge are entwined, they cannot be separated. Jnanam sarvam shabd anuviddhamiva, entwined. Jnanam sarvam shabdena bhasate. It is manifested, knowledge is manifested by word or language, speech, right? So this observation is there. Then you have, yesterday we were discussing, language is naming process, right? Through language we name objects. When we name them, we know them also. Okay? Under name you have Jnana, Vedana, Samgya, sorry, J is missing, Sanskara. So these four elements are there. Vijnana, Vedana, Samgya, should I write it here? Samgya, Sanskara. Sanskara, right? And then this relates to a particular form, Rupa. Now you will see this language is a focusing device or method, whatever you call it. So when you name certain object, its conceptual image emerges, right? Through that utterance of words, it generates that image, it evokes or manifests that image in our mind, and we get focused on that, right? Get focused on that. So that's why.
It reminds me, I mean, my background of the theory of Ernst Cassirer in his philosophy of symbolic forms. So he claims that the first function of knowledge is actually to fix our impressions.
Yes.
And this is then foundation for other functions.
Okay, great. So that's why you have a tradition of Nam Japa, repetition of Nama. Keep repeating the name Ram, 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 etc. Or any mantra, for example. So through that name, utterance of name, repeating the name, our mind gets focused. Ekagra jisko kehte hain. Ekagra, one pointedness is achieved. And then every culture. The same thing, yes. Nam jap, whether you utter it physically or mentally. Manas jap, ajapa jap, it is called ajapa jap. Without uttering the name through vocal organs, you can mentally repeat it. So in that way, mind gets focused on that. And that's why you have a tradition of 1,000 names of deities. There are so many. In India, there are so many like Vishnu Sahasranam, Shiva Sahasranam, Ganesh Sahasranam, 1,000 names of the same deity, right? But you know that there is no truth. All these 1,000 names are synonyms together, okay? Because their referent is same, so they are synonymous. But at the same time, you know, there is no true synonymy in language. There is no true synonym. Why do we need these 1,000 names then for the single deity?
It's also a continuation of narrative. These are epithets.
Why do we need at all? One name is sufficient. Vishnu.
In order to picture the
Different characteristics, different
Yes.
functions that each name will employ that.
Yes. Try to find out those parameters on which these names are given. So sometimes form is described, sometimes actions are described, action of the same deity, right? Sometimes some specific event in the avatar or incarnation of that deity. So this is how it goes on, you know. So by these 1,000 names, we try to capture that deity in its totality, complete. Because each name would evoke a particular image. Each name is focusing on one aspect of that deity, right? Each name is focusing on one particular aspect of that deity, right? So when you say Lambodara or Gajanana, so you are focusing on his face of Ganesha, having elephant kind of thing. Pitambara, you are referring to the dress, right? This is how it goes on. So it's a unique tradition. I don't know in other cultural traditions whether such names are available or not, but these are very important part of our cultural practices. Vishnu Sahasranam, Shiva Sahasranam. I have collected 29 such Sahasranams. There may be more. Okay? Many.
even now people are writing.
Good.
Sanskrit scholars.
They are doing in the same
Yeah.
tradition. That's why.
Yeah, and they are writing not even deities. There are many things. For example, there's they have written on constitution. They have written how to say it fasts
The beauty of this Sahasranam is that all these names are available in the verse form. They are versified.
Yeah.
Versified. So easy to remember.
There are many Gandhi Sahasranams.
Huh?
There are many Gandhi Sahasranams.
They will imitate. And they will get exhausted one day. Right? So you need such a deity also, no?
Yeah.
To have 1,000 names. Right. Why most of our Indian actors do not fit into the great historical character? This is the reason.
Yeah.
They can't look like them, like Chandragupta Maurya or something like that. Who is there to enact? You need that kind of personality also, no? Like Prithviraj Kapoor, for example. These are the stars, not actors. Okay, so language is a focusing device. This is very, very important. Okay, 1,000 names. We try to grasp that entity in its totality, and each name focuses on a specific aspect of that deity. Right? This is important in this sense. Then you have language is both ontology as well as epistemology. Ontology means object of knowledge. Epistemology means language is a means also to know something. So we just talked about that language and knowledge cannot be separated. Knowledge of what? Some object, right? So it is ontology because it is a subject matter of study. We try to know about language. Through language we know many things, but we also need to know what language is in itself, right? So language becomes an ontology, a subject of study, knowable, as well as epistemology. In this here we discuss as an epistemological tool or technique or means to what extent language is capable of presenting or presenting reality. Okay, to what extent language is a competent means? Does this manifest reality or represent reality? Okay, and there are such issues involved, and that makes this kind of a study very, very important. Next you will see just like language is rooted in our consciousness, Chaitanya, we call it Chaitanya, Chetana, Chaitanya. So both are, I mean, co-terminus, let us say like this, sadhya and sadhan. Language is both sadhya, object, as we in the previous point we were discussing. Language is ontology as well as sadhan. Language describes everything, but how do you describe language? Through language. Right? Through language. Works on grammar are written in language, any language, right? So language becomes means as well as object, both. In the same way, we can ask, consciousness helps us to know objects, but how consciousness is known? Through consciousness. There is no other way. So here we are, both, yes.
This is the question that
Nagarjuna was asking. Or what are the other ways to know it? Even to negate yourself, you need consciousness, no? That I don't exist. You need consciousness to say this. Okay? So these are the issues, fundamental issues. Nobody is going to say that I have resolved it forever. But engaging itself is very, very important, right? Then language reveals oblique conceals reality. These are the things that make a study of language very, very important. It hides differences and it creates differences. For example, waves, bubbles, froths, etc. These are nothing different from water, right? But when you name them, language is naming, no? Language is naming. When you name them, they appear distinct. They appear different from water, right? In the same way, no two apples are same, but they are named like that. We call it apple. So when we use jati, common noun, the differences, actual differences are veiled, and wherever there is no difference, differences are created, as in this case. Water and bubble are not different from each other, but difference is created here, and no two trees are same, but we name them in the same fashion. So actual differences are sometimes veiled, and wherever there is no ontologically different objects, then differences are created. By which language? So language is so important subject. So the question one would ask is whether language creates heterocosm, a different alternative reality for us. When we try to know the object through language, is the reality is represented, manifested, or a kind of alternative reality is presented before us through the prism of language, through the means of language. So this is again important. Language functions on the principle of economy. It functions on the principle of economy. Less effort, less words, right? And then how many types of sentences we use? Very limited. Very limited. You need to learn very limited sentences. And words are also, though it's very exhaustive, but in comparison to what we know, it is very less. Words are very less in comparison to the domain of knowledge which we cover through them. So it functions on the principle of economy, and then first is it begins from the speech sound itself, that out of innumerable sounds we select speech sounds, alphabet system, and then even alphabets are also very limited. They have very limited enumeration of sounds, very limited, that which we can articulate from throat to lips. And there are variations in this. This is the range, this is the scale from throat to lips. This is called asya, tulya asya, asya prayatnam savarnam. So this is the vocal tract from throat to lip. All speech sounds in any language are located in the various parts of this oral nasal cavity, right? So at least you can have around 50 such speech sounds, keeping in view the languages, not more than that. But on the basis of these limited speech sounds, you have innumerable words. It generates innumerable words.
130 sounds approximately
all over the world. But they are articulated from here, throat to. Before that, there cannot be any sound. Vibration takes place here in the throat, and after lips, beyond lips, you cannot. So all 130, as my learned friend is reporting, 130 or so, but they all are located here. And in this 130 speech sounds, you can cover all the languages of the world. See this. So it functions on the principle of economy, right? And then other things are also there. Polyvalent words or verbal roots. One word has multiple meanings. That is also a sign of this economy. For each word, you don't have For each meaning you don't need to have separate words. But here verbal roots in Sanskrit or I think in other languages also, verbal roots are polyvalent. One verbal root has multiple meanings. So it is the root is same, but it posits several meanings. And then when you derive from the same verbal root different words, you will see that this kind of derivation is possible. Now come to figures of speech. This is oh great, thank you. Have this because I am speaking. Huh? Please. You don't take? Huh? Whosoever, please. Acha. So you see figures of speech with a hand.
This is also a feature of human language.
Yes.
When we speak, we can do other things.
Duality.
Barks, it only barks.
We call it duality of patterning. No? Charles F. Hockett has written a beautiful article that is published in Scientific American.
Please,
Origin.
free download.
Yes, you can download it. What is the title?
Scientific.
Scientific American. No, title of
Title is functions of language.
Yes.
And this is Martinez's principle.
Hmm.
The French Martinet, he was Jacobson and Martinet, they have written on this.
Design features of language. It is called design features of language. Right?
Jacobson is the first one who discussed it.
They were great linguists, definitely. So, figures of speech, through them you can express so much, very limited figures of speech are there, but through them you can express a variety of expressions, and moreover with a great impact. You cannot whatever is said through the figures of speech cannot be said in the same kind of effectiveness with others, and with this principle of brevity or economy. For example, you might have studied Ramayana, for example, Ramayana of Valmiki, or Meghdutam of Kalidas. You say that Yaksha, the main protagonist there in Meghdutam, he is separated from his house, beloved wife, for say 1 year, and now the rainy season comes, and then poet starts this description, Meghdutam. So he is lamenting. In fact, this separation is difficult, and so how do you express it? If you say Yaksh was very unhappy, people will say okay, fine, but you know that you are not able to communicate fully with the same kind of effect and beauty, also aesthetics. Expressing something with effect and aesthetic appeal, you cannot do without these figures of speech. So how do you express the feeling of Yaksha or a feeling of Rama, who is there wandering in the forest in search of Sita also, and see the life of Ram one after another? There is a series of unhappy moments. So how do you say that Ram is very unhappy? This is just a information. This is just an information. But then you want to say that no, Ram is very unhappy. Okay, fine. That is also a kind of information. And then you keep on adding very, very unhappy, very unhappy, very, very unhappy, unhappy, like this. People at a time will start laughing. So it will produce a counter rush. You are explaining, trying to communicate tragedy, it becomes comic. Figures of speech is important. The moment you say Ram's suffering or Ram's sorrow is like an ocean, that's all. You have communicated everything. You have communicated everything. So this is the beauty of and brevity or economy what we are talking about. So figures of speech helps us to say with same effectiveness, with great effectiveness and with great aesthetic appeal in a very few words. So this is also, and again there is a in Indian poetics we call it dhvani, suggested meaning. You know? So here the poet or the writer would give you a kind of situation. He will not describe things apparently. You know? He will give you your situation, and there you will experience the meaning. Meaning is to be experienced here, because we are discussing the literary discourse. So meaning is not just communicated; it has to be experienced. The suffering of the character protagonist there, or happiness of the protagonist there, is to be experienced. So in dhvani siddhanta, or in rasa siddhanta, rasa aesthetic sentiment, the poet or the dramatist would not describe. Once you start describing an emotion, its effect is gone. Then you can become a scientist. You may not be a poet. You can analyze it like a cognitive scientist or psychology in the way we do it, but to express it with the same effectiveness, so that it is appealing to the hearer or listener. You know? So in dhvani siddhanta, it describes the situation. The poet would simply describe the situation, and meaning is communicated. After going through Ramayana, it's a huge text. What is suggested there? Karuna rasa, you know? Pathos, compassion. This is what we are filled with. We have experienced the suffering of Rama. Next time, sir, Ramayana should be taken up.
Yes, yes.
Huh?
We have a course also in Ramayana.
We have Ramayana in the study.
No, in our also we have Ramayana.
I don't know how you are studying, but such a wonderful text.
In our also we have not taken it up, but it is there.
Yeah, Ramayana in South Asian already.
Ramayana is Ramayana.
That is okay, but first go through it. What kind of text it is? Wonderful.
These titles
Unparalleled. Valmiki is unparalleled. I can assure you.
Shivadi in Nalanda and Shivadi in Chhattisgarh.
Right? So, Karuna is communicated. Right? Karuna is communicated. Because the task of the poet is not to inform you simply. The whole Ramayana can be summed up in one page or in 5-6 sentences. Huh? One shloki Ramayana also. But what do you find there? Just a description of the events, just indication. But here the poet wants you to feel it, experience it. So literature liberates us from our narrow self. Meaning is communicated in a sense that it is experienced. It is experienced, right? So through handful of words, you can have lots of such expressions. And then language is the great self, Shabda Brahman. There is nothing beyond language. But here you need to know what language actually is. It is not that which we are speaking. Before a speech or before speaking or writing, lots of things have happened before it. This is only the fourth aspect, as the Indian grammarians would tell you. This is only the fourth aspect that is manifested. That is the fourth stage of language. What are others? This is important. Okay. I told you yesterday, this is the only culture that tells you that language is a matter of meditation. Language is to be meditated upon, right? And if you take into consideration all those tantric sects, Buddhist Tantra or Jain or Hindu or whatever you call it, Shakta, Shaiva Tantra, there you will see that the speech sound itself is very, very important. Speech sound, not even word or sentence, speech sound, because speech sound is the basis of everything. So these are ontologically examined. You will see that para, pashyanti, madhyama and vaikhari. These are the 4 levels of speech. Para, P-A-R-A, can you see? Para, pashyanti, pashyanti, long E, madhyama, madhyama and vaikhari. This is the vaikhari vak which we articulate, and it is audible, right? Before that, we will start from here, because the most gross aspect of language is here. Vaikhari. Then comes just before that, before articulation, this is the stage called madhyama, the middle speech. Why it is middle speech? Because it comes in the middle between pashyanti and vaikhari. That's why it is called madhyama, middle speech. Just before articulation, if you observe yourself closely, you will find the whole sentence is there. Whole sentence, what you want to say is very much there. And then in the next phase, it is articulated, right? But even before that, there is a pashyanti level, where you can actually see the speech. Why it is called pashyanti? Because this is the first manifestation within, that we have a desire to speak, we want to say something. Okay, that's why it is called manifest within. This is manifested outside, this is manifested within. This is the first vibration, this is the first manifestation of what? This para. Para is non-manifest, without any stir or vibration. It is serene, calm consciousness, let us say. The moment it has a desire, there is a desire to say or speak, we are here at this level. So this is the first manifestation, that's why it is called pashyanti. One can see how this speech process is going on. Then comes madhyama, all the word sentences are arranged as per the norm, as per the grammatical rules, and finally it is uttered by tongues or lips or so. Yes.
Sir, in this whole process, where does thought reside? Like, is it before para? Or how can we locate that?
Para is non-manifest. Okay, so thought emerges out of that, but this is not the stage of manifested speech, right? All thought, all knowledge is here. Something like you can say at the substratum, right? But the moment there is a desire to express it, right? To desire to express it, here is the first manifestation. You want to say something, no? Maybe an experience or thought or anything, anything. So this is the speech. Now you will see that we keep on talking to ourselves without this one. Pashyanti and madhyama. Don't speak, most of the time we do not speak to others. Okay? We speak to our own self. So language is communion with our own self. Right? So this is ultimately the consciousness that is taking these forms. Para, then pashyanti, then madhyama, and then finally manifest speech. So these are the levels, and that's why it is said that language is to be meditated upon. You start from here, from vaikhari, then we try to see what is the stage before vaikhari, then we come to madhyama, Then Madhyama takes us to Pashyanti, and finally this Para. Para is the self. This is our self, okay, supreme self or individual self, but this is Para. Without this, nothing can happen. So it is ultimately the Chaitanya, Vishwa Chaitanya, universal consciousness also, that is known through speech also. Now, second thing is that when you meditate upon these, yesterday we talked about Varna, Varnamala, right? Varna. So Varna means color. C-O-L. But Varnan karna means description. You describe it. Describe it. It helps us to describe, express, right? That's why it is called also Varna. Varna has two meanings. Color of a speech sound, or a speech sounds having a particular color. Color can be used in two ways, just to distinguish, as through color we distinguish one object from another. Color helps us to distinguish between different objects. So one aspect of color is this. This is broadly in contemporary linguistic terms, it is called distinctive features. Distinctive features. One sound, both sounds are same, but one feature may be uncommon, right? So ka, kha, yesterday we gave this example, ka, kha. What is common between them? Both are voiceless, both are articulated from throat, right? And what is the difference then? One is aspirated, another is unaspirated. Alpa prana and mahaprana. Alpa prana unaspirated and mahaprana aspirated. Bina aspiration ke you cannot articulate, without aspiration. So it is not without unaspirated sound is again a myth. So it is there. Now in what ways it actually means color? Varna, and this is now the process of meditation, that these 6 chakras in this Sushumna middle path, Ida, Pingala, and the middle path is called, central nerve is called Sushumna. So when the power moves up from the lower part, Mooladhara, substratum, it moves up and then it crosses the 6 chakras, 6 sheaths, right? On each chakra there are, it's symbolized like lotus. There are petals in lotus, and each petal is marked with a specific sound, and that sound has a specific color there. Got this idea? So how all such things are interrelated, one in Tantra meditation till the manifest speech, articulated speech, all are in continuity, right? And these speech sounds are ontological, as it is said in the beginning of a text called Nandikeshwara Kashika. Nandikeshwara Kashika. Nandikeshwara Kashika. Kashika. This is a huge text, very big. Nandikeshwara, right? Thank you, sir. Kashika, right? Kashika. It's a very voluminous text having only one page. Okay, one page text. Nandikeshwara Kashika. There are only, I think, around 20-25 lines also. You can Google it and you'll find it. Nandikeshwara Kashika. There he describes these speech sounds ontologically. Speech sounds are described ontologically. Each sound is not representing. Each sound in itself is an ontological element. Okay, and it begins like this. Nrittavasane Nataraj Rajo Vinad Dhakkam Navapanchavaram. Yes, yes. Sanakadi Siddhan Etad Vimarshe Shivasutra Jalam. Shivasutra Jalam. That at the end of the dance, cosmic dance, Lord Shiva played his damru. Damru, what is damru, sir? Dumbbell. Okay? Damru. You might have seen in the hands of Shiva playing like this. So he played it 14 times. So, and why did he play it? Because there are devotees, sadhakas, great seers, who wanted to be liberated. So, to fulfill their desire, Lord Shiva, Bhagavan Shiva, he played his dumbbell 14 times. 14 times. Uddhartu Kama Sanakadi Siddhan, Sanak, etc., Sanak and others rishis are there. Uddhartu Kama Sanakadi Siddhan Etad Vimarshe Shivasutra Jalam. He cast this net of the Shivasutra, these speech sounds. Now, two meanings are there. Net is meant for capturing. For it may symbolize bondage. Okay, so language is both a means of bondage, a means of liberation. If we know them ontologically in their actual form, then it becomes a means of liberation. If not, then we are they become a means of bondage for us. Okay, bondage. So each sound is an ontological entity. If we know them like this, we are liberated. Okay, if we know only that these are articulated speech sounds, and voiced, voiceless, and all such things, good. But then you are not approaching the origin. You are only you are describing its manifestations outside, not inside, from where it is coming out. Where is the source of para? Is it outside or inside? Inside. It is within. Okay. So how it relates to the cosmic consciousness, once we know through these speech sounds, we are liberated. Otherwise, we are in bondage. So, Uddhartu Kama Sanakadi Siddhan Etad Vimarshe Shivasutra Jalam. Jal also represents a systematic manifestation. There is a pattern in net, no? Net has a pattern. So, these speech sounds are not manifested abruptly without any system. They are, there is a system. Like this, these 14 Maheshwar Sutras, they are in the specific form. So, you will see that in this Shiva Sutra, it begins with the most voiced speech sound to the voiceless, from voiced to voiceless. It begins with a, ends with ha. Ha is voiceless, no? Voiceless. So, from voiced manifest to non-manifest, it is taking us to the same substratum. It manifested for a while, for a manifestation of this creation, and the way sounds, speech sound gets unvoiced, it becomes unvoiced. Similarly, the world also ceases to exist. This whole creation is subsumed under this. And the last,
Also, we should clarify.
Hal.
Last
Acha, hal.
is because we have
Hal.
occurring voice.
Hal.
So one is voice, one is non-voice.
Hal, last sound. Hayavarat and hal. This is the it marker ending. This simply suggests that there are 14 sets of speech sounds that are manifested rhythmically.
In fact, this concept is a course on structuralism and ethic thought. Structuralism originates
Right? So,
entire 20th century, 19th century originates.
sorry, please you speak something. I will.
No, that's also. They have a one course.
I see.
Structuralism and ethic thought systems. So this is
Right. Okay. Now see, this hal is the marking of the end of the set, right? Because this is an oral text. In oral text, where you need put full stop or comma. There is some device. So Panini has used this. So hal, last sound is the it marker, and that suggests the something like sigla, right? that help us recognize that this set is closed. So from to her, this is the all these speech sounds, and these are rhythmic in 14 sections. I wanted to say something more. Okay. So, Siv Sutra Jalam, this is a rhythmic pattern that is also suggested. All musical rhythms, all musical tal, what we call, are derived from these 14 sections. So, language and music go together, playing 14 times, and then all the speech sounds rhythmically manifest, and so is the language. In this sense, I was talking the other day that language is metrical. Language is metrical. The name of a language is in fact something like naming a meter. Like naming a meter. The way you speak Spanish, in the same fashion you don't speak English. The way you speak English, you don't speak Sanskrit. These all have different rhythms. They all have. So this is little subtle, but I understand that you can realize it. Okay, so this tala and music both are embedded here. Our gods are yes.
How do we connect that swaras and
You see, swaras relate to intonation, right? Intonation. There are two aspects, lay and lay or tal, same thing. Lay and tal is same, and another is swara. Swara. So swara, there are 7. If you want to read more about it, there is a text called Sangeet Ratnakar by Sarangadeva. Sangeet Ratnakar. Ratnakar by Sarangadeva, right? Sarangadeva in 12th century. The first chapter is about Nada Brahma, right? That the sound, primordial sound, is the basis of everything. Okay, this is how this book on musicology, music, describes it. The first chapter is about the Nada as supreme self, speech, the musical sound, Nada, that immanent. Nada is immanent. Okay, it permeates everything. Only the role of a musician is to make it manifest. The way we language is within us. As a speaker, we manifest it. Similarly, a musician also, the nad is immanent, and his or her skill is to manifest it. So, swara and tala, swara and laya, these are entwined, right? Entwined. Even if you articulate swara, if you go to a guru, teacher, music teacher, he would tell you not to articulate in an isolated way. Articulate it rhythmically. Sa re ga ma, like this, musically, rhythmically. Okay, so rhythm is very embedded there also. Though you are practicing only speech, swara, musical notes, but he would tell you that practice it with some rhythm. Okay, it is otherwise it will be difficult to control later on. So these are the things one should keep in mind. Then let us come down to now bit gross things. Here in epistemology, Buddhist epistemology, we talked about Buddhist scholars have two means of knowledge, that is perception and inference. Right? Two means of knowledge. make a table like this. This is called pratyaksha, and this is called anumana. There are lots of misconceptions about Buddhism, unfortunately. So think about it very carefully. Perception and inference, pratyaksha and anumana. These are the two means of knowledge. This is their epistemology. But it will be wrong to say that the Buddhists accept only two means of knowledge. It will be wrong to say. And this is how it is generally discussed. Buddhists have accepted all other epistemological methods, all epistemological forms, but they have included them under anumana. Okay? So here you have also Shabda, verbal testimony, then analogy, etc. Right? So it will not be proper to say that they have only two and they have rejected others. You cannot conclude it like this, that they have rejected others. No, they have accepted others, but they have included them under अनुमान. दिस इज कॉल्ड अंतर्भाव करना, है ना, अंतर्भाव. शेष प्रमाणों का उन्होंने अंतर्भाव कर दिया इसमें. दे हैव subsumed. Then ontologically, what are the ontological elements for them? It is swalakshana, lakshana and samanya lakshana. Samanya lakshana. Swalakshana and samanya lakshana are only two knowables, right? These are the terms used by the Vijnanavadi acharyas, Vijnanavadi exponents. Two objects of knowledge, two means of knowledge, right? So what we should say, that Buddhists have denied the independent status of verbal testimony, analogy and postulation, etc. Two independent means of knowledge are only perception and inference. Okay? Pujaji, am I right? Huh? So this is the terminology used by the Vijnanavadins. Madhyamikas use another terminology, same but different. They call it Paramarthik Satya, Paramarthik Satya and Samritik Satya. Right? Sorry. It will create confusion. This is according to Vijnanavada. Right? Here we are saying ontology according to Madhyamikas. Here you have Paramarthik Satya and here you have Samritik Satya. Paramarthik Satya and Samritik Satya. Marthika Satya and Satya. Now see this. I think it is now clear. This is important to understand first. Two knowables and two means of knowledge. Okay? And there is direct correspondence between these two and these two. Swalakshana is known through perception, Samanya Lakshan is known through inference. In the same way, Paramarthik Satya is known through perception, Samritik Satya is known through inference. Okay? Now the question is, and this was causing great trouble to me when I was working on this Buddhist theory of meaning, why did they include verbal testimony under Anumana? Okay? We are discussing Shabda, no? Shabda, meaning of word and the word itself. Why did they include it here under Anumana? There is no independent status of Shabda in Buddhist ontology and epistemology, right? So this is called Pramana Vyavastha, very strict arrangement of ontology and epistemology. Pramana Vyavastha. It means Swalakshan perception is restricted to Swalakshan or Paramarthik Satya, inference is restricted to Samanya Lakshan or Samritik Satya. Right? This arrangement, a specific strict arrangement, is called Pramana Vyavastha. Other philosophical systems do not accept this. Right? So they are called philosophical systems advocating for Pramana Samplava. Pramana Samplava. Pramana Samplava. Samplava. Okay, Samplava. Samplava. Right, let me write it. Samplava. Pramana Samplava. Right? So it means overlapping. Samplava means overlapping. In other philosophical system, it is okay when you say that I have known this object through words, through perception, through inference, through verbal, many other ways. Okay, it is acceptable. Here you can't say like this. In this Pramana Vyavastha, it is restricted. So each means of knowledge has their own domain, a specific domain of application. Domain of application, right? Is that clear? Now see, so we were just arguing that there are two independent means of knowledge, Pratyaksha and Anumana. Rest of the things are included under Anumana. That means rest of the things do not have their independent epistemological status. Is that clear? So they have included Shabd here, word here, language under this. Why it is so? What is the difference between Pratyaksha and Anumana? First of all, let us make it clear. When we know the object through perception and when we know the object through inference, how the knowledge itself differ from each other? This is the question, sir. How do the knowledge which is acquired through applying through these two different means of knowledge differ from each other? Any observation? Yeah. Intermediated, indirect, right? Can you give one example, right?
Sir, for Anuman, we can have an example which you told us about the smoke in the fire. And the Pratyaksh is like through our eyes we can directly see.
So knowledge of what is indirect? Smoke or fire?
The smoke is the hidden knowledge. Anuman.
The
knowledge is fire. Fire is the knowledge.
knowledge of fire is indirect. That will be indirect. Through that marker, you arrive at this knowledge that there must be fire. Fire is not visible. Okay, visible is only smoke. Okay, but these two always are seen together. We call it coherence or concomitance. So wherever we see smoke, we have not seen any counter examples. That's why there is a whole process. 5 stages are involved. So we understand that there must be fire. So the knowledge of fire is indirect. You have seen only smoke and you have inferred fire, right? Does and what is pratyaksha?
It's like denoted meaning and connoted meaning.
Yeah.
It's like direct meaning and indirect meaning.
I will come to that. That is, both are indirect. Both are indirect. Yes. Yes, please. Perception. Is this direct perception? Is this a direct means of knowledge?
The object is directly interacting with.
Who is the knower? Eyes? No. So it is also indirect. It is also indirect. Yeah, you are using something, no? There are limitations of the eyes also, ears and all such things. Oh, okay, relatively we can say it is direct, relatively, right? Exactly, this is the point they are making. Dve satye samupashatye. These two types of truth which we are here positing, they are dependent on each other. Okay? They derive their meaning, their significance relatively, depending on each other.
So then how it could be Paramartha Satya? Because
Coming to that. So, there were great minds. First of all, the same process which we have seen in the case of Anumana, inference, can you replicate the same process in the case of verbal testimony, Shabda? The same process can be replicated. What do you hear? You hear sounds. Do you understand only speech sounds or the object also? Huh? For example, cow. It's a combination of some speech sounds. It falls into our ear. This is direct, let us say, for example, it's a direct perception through ears. But what do we understand? Only sound? Image. Knowledge of that particular object. So that is also indirect. Knowledge of the object is also indirect. We hear sound, we hear the sound pattern, acoustic pattern, as Saussure says, acoustic pattern. And then, do you know, he was a Sanskrit scholar. Ferdinand de Saussure was a Sanskrit scholar. And his doctoral thesis, I think it is translated, sir, into English also?
2018 they have it.
Okay. On the use of genitive absolutes in Panini. Is this the title?
yeah.
In Sanskrit.
In Sanskrit, yes.
I mean, this is the title.
Yeah,
On the use of genitive absolute in Sanskrit.
in Sanskrit, right. So you'll see this is also indirect. Now, if it is indirect, can this process lead us towards Swalakshan or Paramarthik Satya? No. It will have its domain of operation only at the level of Samanya and Samvritik Satya. Right? Samvritik or Samanya Lakshana. Okay? Samvriti in Buddhism refers to intellect. So the world created by or processed by our intellect is called Samvritik Satya, phenomenal truth. Phenomenal truth, right? 5 minutes. This phenomenal truth. Okay? So a different heterocosm, as we are talking about just now. So it has created a kind of heterocosm for us. Mind has processed it and created a different image of the world. At the Paramarthik level, it is momentariness that is prevailing. Okay? At this samvritic level, it is fixed, it is constant. Why? Because our mind has created this world. Mind has created jati, class, universal, and you won't find any change in universal. In class you don't find, not this class, in class like a tree, animal, cow, anything, that class, in individual cow takes birth and dies, not the universal class property. So like you have a tree and treeness, something like this. So that is the class property, and through this treeness you will never fail to recognize whether the tree is you are going to see the tree for the first time. You will be able to see that there is a tree, though that you are seeing that tree for the first time, but you can cognize it as tree. So there is universal and there is individual. These stages of change take place only at the individual level. Substance, we call it substance, dravya. Okay. Then you will see our mind processes this reality and impose it on that reality which is there. A heterocosm is created and imposed back, and then the world appears constant, static, or without any much change or so. So this is called samvritik satya. One has to understand its nature, and this goes against the norm, against the foundational philosophical assumption, that is sarvam anityam. Sarvam anityam. It means everything is momentariness, momentary being of the element. In no two successive moment objects remain same. You cannot go back to the earlier stage. It's a continuous process. Sansarati iti samsara. It goes on. That's why it is called samsara. It's moves on. Etymologically, samsara means that it moves on. Samsara. Right? So this is how it is discussed. So two means of knowledge and two knowables. Verbal testimony is a part of anuman because it is also indirect. Now it is now clear that for a Buddhist philosopher, logician, a linguistic sign is a conceptual construct, right? It's a mental construct because it is here. And Dingnag in his Pramana Samuchaya was a great teacher here. In his Pramana Samuchaya, the text is lost. When the library was burnt, the text is lost. We only have its Tibetan Bhot, in Bhot language, its translation. I think along with two commentaries, Jinendra Buddhi and other one. It is translated into English by Richard P. Hayes, Clover Publication, London. So there you will see that in 5 chapters of this book, Pramana Samuchaya, he has developed this theory of what we call apoha. So Pratyaksha, Anuman, etc. also chapters are there. Then under Anuman he is discussing this apoha, and when he defines Pratyaksha in the first chapter, he would tell you, because some of these verses are quoted by the contemporary philosophers or the philosophers, those who come after him. This is the beauty of the debate tradition, that nothing is lost permanently, you know. So there is in one book also, Fragments from Dingnag, it is published, Fragments from Dingnag. So his quotations are collected from different sources as quoted by the later philosophers and logicians, and it has been compiled together. Defining Pratyaksha, he is saying like this: Pratyaksha kalpana podham Nam jatyadya sanyutam. Pratyaksha is that which is devoid of kalpana. Kalpana is mental processing, something like this. Huh? Devoid of mental processing. As a result of mental processing, what happens? Nam, name. Remember Nam root? Now connect it there. Nam, jati, class or universal. These and similar such categories are created. Nam, jati, etc. are created through this mental processing. Pratyaksha is that which is devoid of all such things, all such categories. The moment you have name for the object, you are no longer at the level of perception. We are at the level of inference. Got this point? This is maybe a bit difficult to understand.
For naming that object,
Yes?
you just told it, sir, that when we name the object, we are not at the stage of
Perception,
we are at
right.
the stage of inference.
Huh.
So before naming it is at the stage of perception.
If you can see the object without name, without universal, certainly you are at that level. Huh? Certainly you are there.
Therefore, sir, for Now he very clearly mentions all the sensory perceptions are direct. If you follow this definition,
Hmm.
not by your definition of indirect, by that logic, everything is indirect, right? For example, to eat food, you need ingredients. Ingredients also come from field. Field also come from the farmer. So that's not the understanding. If you see this definition, that how Pratyaksh means something which is free of conceptuality, which does not create name and classes. So by that definition, the sensory can never label. It's always mental consciousness that labels. So therefore, sense perceptions are always under the Pratyaksh with that category.
Right. Let's see. Yes,
Isn't
yes.
this definition similar?
Hmm?
Isn't this definition similar to Nyaya Sutra definition?
No.
That,
No.
that it
It's not
says
exactly.
Yes, yes. How Indriyat Sannikarsha?
no,
Huh.
Avyapadeshyam. So when he says Avyapadeshyam, it's saying that it's beyond the realm of language. I mean, once you speak it, it's not pratyaksha anymore.
But Pratyaksha is defined in Nyaya as Indriyartha Sannikarsha. And there are two types of perception, Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa. Okay, good that you raised this. In should I write it? Huh?
For Aman, you give an example of suppose you are hit, then you have pain. You are hit, you have a sensation.
Dharma.
Can you talk about, or can you verbalize that sensation without naming it as name? So when you are hit, that is your perception. But the moment you conceptualize it, because there is pain.
I told you in the beginning that it is possible to experience without language, but it is not possible to know that experience without language. Huh? Once you are going to in the process of knowing what is there, then all this sangya, sanskar, etc. all will emerge. Okay? So you are at the level of nama, you are level at the inference or giving the name and class property and all such things. Okay? Yes, yes. You first, please.
How do we know what we see if we don't have concepts and they are not verbalized, but anyway they have the form of that previous stages of language. So I would say that
This is the whole
it
thing,
is,
that yes.
mediation of language is not possible to avoid. Indispensable.
Is it possible to get rid of processing of thought processing?
See, they have given an example in class but they did not have a word. They had the experience, but they had not the word. What is the difference? That is status and this system. That is the concept.
You just focus yourself. There is one simple meditative process which is generally discussed in yoga and others. You just observe your breath. Just observe your breath. After a while, this whole thought process is stopped. No thought processing is there. Just observe. Who is breathing like this? No. Observe your breath. A simple exercise. So, I mean, it is possible. It is possible. Otherwise, it would not have been discussed at this length. Okay. It is possible to have experience, but knowing that experience, as you are just pointing out, and it is very correct that knowing that experience, to verbalize it, to express it, it is not possible without these categories or name or so. That is important. But even prior to that, that experience which we have, how to name it. You know? So it is not that these names create that experience. They can revoke, manifest. That can manifest these experiences, but not that they are going to create it also there. Anyways, let's see. Yeah, you have one question, please.
No, how can I, if we are just thinking in our within, in our inner, without object? This sabda is saying in relation with outside or in relation with our.
See, language can relate to both outside and inside, like experiences like sukh, dukh, happiness, sorrow. Also, these are also names. When we say sukh, happiness, we know how it is different from other kinds of experiences, right? So, by object we don't mean only outside objects. There are experiential objects also within. So,
This idea of meditative state of mind.
So there is a process. There are stages involved. How to transcend this level, and achieving approaching this one. There are stages involved. So here Anuman and Pratyaksha. So what happens when they are talking about indirect or direct perception? I was referring to your question. Dharma and dharmi in Nyaya. Pratyaksha perception is of two kinds: savikalpa pratyaksha, nirvikalpa pratyaksha. The moment there is vikalpa, there is shabda. Dignag says that shabdas originate from vikalpa and vikalpas originate from shabda in Pramana Samuchaya itself, quoted by Vachaspati Mishra, later logician. So the moment you have this structure, savikalpa and nirvikalpa is simply this one, where this relationship is vague between dharma, specific characteristics, and these characteristics inhere in some object. So like treeness, for example, this property resides here in some object. That's why it is called tree. Pitcher and pitcherness, something like this. So dharma and dharmi, these are the attributes, and this attribute cannot live alone. It needs some substratum to manifest, right? So black cow, for example, or white cow. So white has to manifest in some substratum, some object, a cloth or a flower or whatever. So this the first stage of pratyaksha, which is nirvikalpa. This relationship is vague. It is there, but it is vague. In the second phase, this becomes manifest. Right? Savikalpa pratyaksha, where this relationship is determined, now known fully that this attribute inheres or lives here, resides here. So that's why dharma dharmi sambandha is established. But the moment the notion of vikalpa comes, it is no longer the state of pratyaksha, according to Buddhist philosophy. Got this point? So this is how they have their own specific observations regarding language. I think we should stop here today, and tomorrow we'll continue with this. Anything else?
Yeah. Is that the difference between Pashanti and Madhyama?
Which one?
The Nirvikalpa Savikalpa.
Not exactly, because Pashyanti is just a kind, this relates to, yes, perception you want to relate it, but I am not sure. This kind of a study has not been done or established, something like this. But this is the manifest speech within. Pashyanti is the manifest speech, first manifestation within, still devoid of name, form, etc. Right? But if you accept it as a speech, then you are in the other domain.
In Parasarimshika Vivaranam, Abhinavagupta says that when Pashanti is when the word and referent is not separated, vaguely separated. When Madhyama is when it's in the same location but separated.
Duality is known there.
Yeah, so Samanadhikarana but little bit
Ah,
separated.
Lots of things. Shaivas have very detailed discussion on this. Let's see, we'll take up. But keep this question in your mind, maybe. Yeah.
Sir, if I may add to, because Bauddha and I think Laura was asking the same question. So especially in psychology texts like Abhidharma Sampuchaya and Abhidharma Proof, there is a mention of
Take the mic.
Yes. Very nice. No, it's okay. It's done. My part is over.
So there is a mention of what actually very clear distinction. So there is a very clear distinction that is very in Pramana Samuchaya, so sensory always pratyaksh. And the example is like, for example, there is never the labeling by the sense consciousnesses, but mental consciousness is the one which labels, which gives the labels or the naming. And within mental consciousness also there is a manas pratyaksh and vikalp. Like mental consciousness, two types, which is conceptual and non-conceptual. So the question that they are asking, especially related to meditation, goes there, because meditation is done with the manas pratyaksh always. So that manas pratyaksh, how to make it a pratyaksh is a very long process. And there is a discussion how in the minds of the ordinary beings who have not cultivated the insight yet, path of seeing, it's a very, for us, it's for a very brief second, there is a discussion of how shana, like 1/65th of the duration of a snap, it comes, but our minds are always habituated in vikalp, in thoughts, and it is interrupted by the thoughts. So for us to retain that moment is very difficult, whereas those who have reached the noble, they are called Arya beings, the level of the Aryas, for them that duration is prolonged with the meditative practices. So then even the mental consciousness can be experienced on the two level, which is the pratyaksh and anuman, or indirect. So that discussion is very much there. And so I just wanted a question also, because that presentation that you gave of the four, para, then pashyanti, madhyama, and finally the vyakhari, that can be also explained on the basis of how they explain the experience of the alevigyan, the para, and from there how it manifests, the entire world manifests.
There are differences, because this relates to the whole.
But that presentation is from which text? I just wanted to, the four that you have mentioned.
They are in the tantric texts. One is there. The reference is from the Rig Veda itself. Chatvari Shringa Triyosya Pada, or Chatvari Vak Parimita Padani Tani Vidur Brahmana Ye Manishina Guha Trini Nihita Nengiyanti Turiye Vacho Manushya Vadanti. So this is how Rig Veda says. But in the Vedic texts, you don't have these names. Para, Pashanti, Madhyama, Vaikhari. They are widely discussed in Tantra, Agam texts. So that's why I was saying right from the beginning, don't make a kind of dichotomy between Nigam and Agam, Astik and Nastik. That is not going to help at all. So these texts, Agamic texts, have taken this up. And in a number of texts, like in Tantralok, Abhinavgupta gives you the whole quotes from the different agamic texts. You know? So this Para, Pashanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari, later on Bhartrihari takes it up, maybe from the agamic tradition, we don't know, because this is again between 1st century and 4th century, 5th century period. Yeah? So lots of things have happened, but we don't know what exactly took place. So Bhartrihari takes it up and he develops it in his theory of meaning, right? In an agamic text, we call it, yesterday I think we discussed about Chit and Chitta, right? Chitta and Chitta. So Para is a part of the manifestation or the primordial energy principle. Para is primordial energy principle. Abhinavgupta says in the beginning of Tantraloka, Naomi chit pratibham devim para bhairav yoginim matrimana prameyansha shulambuj kritaspadam. That this primordial power, who is Para, takes the multiple forms. Para is non-dual form. Para and then Apara, dual form. And Para, dual come non-dual form. And through this energy, through this principle, that Shakti manifests this world. So Para is that part which is all pervasive, non-dual, continuous. Okay? The moment it has a desire, since this is consciousness, you cannot stop it having a desire or so. And that is the absolute power, Parashakti. So the moment it has a desire to express or create, manifest, in the same substratum there is duality. Duality evolves, and that is the level of Apara. First Para, where both are together, Para and Apara, dual come non-dual in Pashyanti level. And then later on this duality becomes more and more manifest to the extent that idam or this becomes more prominent than the aham, I. This is the same I consciousness, universal consciousness that manifests this world, but the moment it has a desire to manifest it, it appears in the dual form, and this is how the world process goes on. Panini's last sutra is simply What does that mean? Simply This is the last sutra. This is the last sutra of Ashtadhyayi. Somebody said that he was teaching grammar in forest and a tiger appeared. All the wise disciples ran away. But he thought I should not run away, because that is not the proper for a teacher, that he is afraid of death. So he kept sitting there, and the tiger, he went in samadhi, and the tiger came and realized that this person is still alive. Meditation, but still alive. And he, you know what happens. So this is said that when the tiger caught this throat, the last sutra appears as and that's gone. Okay, that's a joke. Good jokes. So grammarians are also humorous, they have humor. Serious thought, but they have humor, full of humors, grammarians. Okay. The idea is that is primarily, originally, sambrita, closed vowel. Is a closed vowel, linguistically speaking also. But if it is closed, then no language is possible. Okay, so it has to manifest. It becomes vivrita. It becomes open vowel, and then the whole grammatical process takes place, and finally it comes back to its normal position, and that is sambrita. So first refers to Vibrita, the second refers to Sambrita, closed vowel, and with this the text also closes. And so is this lecture. Thank you very much.